Howdy, howdy, everyone, and welcome again to the Lauren Muzyka Show. I'm your host, Lauren Muzyka, attorney and human rights advocate, and my day today is serving as president CEO of Sidewalk Advocates for Life, the nation's largest peaceful sidewalk outreach organization. It is time for another hot take. I'm getting ready to address a hot topic in the news right now, namely President Trump's recent announcement that he's not going to fully enforce the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, otherwise known as the FACE Act, and a pledge from the group of pro-lifers who broke the law. This is a group that since 2017 in varying groups has entered abortion center property and maybe chained themselves to furniture or blockaded the door, otherwise not allowing people to enter. And they were thrown in federal prison under FACE. Now, they were later pardoned by President Trump earlier this year, and they've pledged to possibly do this again during Trump's term. Now, to back up a bit, it was a new directive written by U.S. Attorney General Chief of Staff Chad Mazzell, instructing prosecutors to enforce the law only in extraordinary circumstances or in instances when death, extreme bodily harm, or significant property damage results. Now, overall, this is a refreshing change from a weaponized FBI and DOJ under the Biden administration, which not only prosecuted, but seemingly actively persecuted pro-life people, right? Just to give one example, we have only a couple pro-abortion people who were prosecuted under FACE, despite there being well over 100 incidents of threatening graffiti and vandalism of pro-life pregnancy resource centers right before Roe versus Wade was overturned. And then juxtapose that with the good number of pro-lifers who blockaded doors and chained themselves to items inside the abortion facility who were disproportionately prosecuted under FACE. Now, a recent article in Politico highlighted a vow of those pardoned by Trump to resume so-called modern-day rescue efforts and their invitation to other pro-lifers to join them. One of the activists who had been sentenced to 27 months in prison said, "Get out there, whether it's outside the clinic or inside or wherever you need to actually prevent unborn children's lives from being taken. There's actual lives being saved every minute you are committing the crime. Every minute that a rescuer is inside the building, they are not killing babies." Now, here's my response to that. My response is yes, that's true. Temporarily, an abortion facility will go on lockdown. And by the way, did you know that in this day and age, most abortion facilities are trained to go on lockdown when there's an incident inside the facility. They often pull the women to the back room, limiting access, and halt abortions because a group of people have, for example, entered the waiting room. They're considered trespassers. They chain themselves to furniture, and they're actively preventing people from moving about the facility or even entering the facility itself, right? But the bigger question is, what happens after these folks enter and are arrested? What former Planned Parenthood director Abby Johnson has told us, as well as other abortion workers who have left the industry and become pro-life, is that appointments are almost always resumed or they get rescheduled, either at that same facility or another one close by. In other words, these people who hunger to save the lives of the preborn, and we all share that if you consider yourself pro-life, right? These folks who risked and served federal prison sentences because of their approach did not actually end abortion at the facilities where they took their stand, despite their best efforts. When you add up all these incidents since 2017, because there was, kind of a modern day resurgence of the old Operation Rescue from the 1980s and 1990s. And I want to be clear, we're not litigating the Operation Rescue of the 80s and 90s. There was a different time, different generations, different set of circumstances. That's a whole other podcast, right? Discussing all of that. But modern day, this is kind of what we're looking at, incidents since about 2017. This approach has rarely saved lives, if at all. And I'm not saying that to be mean to anybody that's participated in this or even be critical, but we just kind of have to look at the data, right? And when we contrast that with prayer and sidewalk outreach, which has confirmed tens of thousands of lives saved over the last couple of decades, I do the math and go, wow, this is really something to look at, right? We at Sidewalk Advocates for Life released a short statement the day the pro-life activists were pardoned, and here's what we said. This is a specific group of people who broke the law by going onto abortion center property to stage protests or used bike locks, chains, and rope to try to stop abortions. The pardon is a good thing from the standpoint that faces bad law and it was used to inequitably go after pro lifers instead of prosecuting pro abortion people who had defaced pro life pregnancy centers and churches, much less abortionists who were lining their pockets every day with the death of innocent children. However, I still caution everyone to remember that when it comes to saving lives at an abortion facility, this approach hasn't produced much fruit, especially as compared with prayer and sidewalk advocacy. We have a moral obligation when the lives of innocent children hang in the balance to do the most effective thing that will reach the heart of a mother in crisis before it's too late. That should always trump making a public statement. We can hold both right now. We can celebrate that these pro life individuals are no longer under a weaponized Biden administration and still encourage people to do what is proven to keep us on the sidewalk and saves the most lives at abortion facilities, which ironically is working within the confines of our First Amendment rights. If you need help with training, check out sidewalkadvocates.org. We'd love to help. So that was the short statement we released. So in closing, here's a few reasons why we would encourage people to stay the course in prayer and sidewalk outreach at abortion facilities and avoid participating in a law-breaking approach, again, something that some people term modern day rescue, even if the Trump administration is lenient right now. First off, the approach that we at Sidewalk Advocates for Life take to reach out to an abortion-determined woman in love, offering her a smile, a gift bag, local resources, and most of all, hope, right? The research from the Vitae Foundation tells us that this is the approach that most often wins women to life. And I don't say that with any point of pride, right? I say that knowing that we have gathered so much wisdom through the decades, through the ages from so many who have gone before us, and we continue to learn and improve our game, right? In contrast, former abortion workers now on our side who have witnessed law-breaking approaches at abortion centers say that the women sitting in the waiting room are not comfortable with or confident in accepting help from an individual that is chaining himself or herself to a nearby piece of furniture or blockading a door. I mean, really put yourself in the shoes of that woman sitting in the waiting room for an abortion, right? She is seeing all this chaos ensue around her. These folks aren't supposed to be here. The workers notice it. They are getting agitated. They're calling the police. They're labeling these people dangerous. The facility's going on lockdown. They're pulling everybody to a back room. I mean, just put yourself in the shoes of that woman. And even if, yes, it is so true that what that abortion worker is doing is wrong, what that woman or couple is doing is wrong in seeking an abortion. At the same time, we have to create a safe environment for people to come to us. Safe meaning calm, safe meaning approachable, right? The rescuers describe themselves as nonviolent, and many of them even say, we took a pledge to be nonviolent. But we have to remember that we live in a violent world. We live in a day and age of school shootings. If a group of people suddenly bursts into a facility, how can the women sitting in the waiting room possibly understand that these people, who they do not know from Adam, do not intend violence? I mean, it's hard to imagine that these folks, the folks that are seeking an abortion, may not be absolutely terrified in this situation, much less be willing to get up and walk to a nearby pregnancy resource center with one of these folks, right? I know from experience that I have to first win the life-saving conversation. And if I don't win that conversation, I can't win her trust. And if I don't win her trust, I can't get her to abandon her abortion appointment and walk with me to the nearest pregnancy resource center. There has to be an invitation and she has to respond, right? Second, because breaking a federal law could result in a lengthy prison term, participating in modern day rescue could result in removing countless people from the sidewalk where they could otherwise reach out to numerous mothers in crisis in the coming days. So from a life-saving perspective, the math here just doesn't add up. we are, on one hand, risking a prison term and a prison record. And by the way, if you become a felon, you're talking about the burden now of not being able to vote or own a firearm or adopt a child. I mean, this is hefty, right? If you get charged and convicted under face. Okay, so you're risking a prison term, prison record, while maybe postponing a few abortion appointments for a few days versus sidewalk outreach, doing sidewalk outreach for weeks, months, and maybe years, and then missing the ability to prospectively save dozens or even hundreds of lives per the data. Okay, so weigh that out for a second. Like, do we want to just delay abortions, or can we do the activity that is credited with tens of thousands of saves? But there's something else, something very simple that I fear that the pardon activists are missing, and the people who are even reading the Politico article may be missing. And that's the fact that administrations change. Yes, Trump pardoned them for violating the FACE Act in these instances. But what happens when there's another administration change in 4 years? The fact is, really hear me on this. This is interesting. There's a statute of limitations of several years on FACE Act violations. And let's say someone commits, this crime, so to speak, or, participates in a modern day rescue act next year. A new administration could come in after Trump and his administration, and they could flip the switch and decide to prosecute violators of the FACE Act 4 or 5 years afterwards. In other words, until Congress repeals the FACE Act, which, yes, many of us agree is bad law, its power will ebb and flow as different administrations enter and exit office. And here's something you may not know. A number of states have their own version of the FACE Act on the basis of which they could continue to prosecute so-called rescuers. So in summary, again, I urge all people of faith and conscience who love the cause of life to stay the course, avoid approaches that cause further discord and chaos, and trust in the power of prayer, love, and peaceful outreach to impact hearts and minds, save lives, and end abortion gradually and permanently, not just postpone it for a few days. And I want to point you all to a statement that we released after one of these incidents. It even goes a little bit deeper on some of the things that I'm saying. You can go to sidewalkadvocates.org/sidewalk statement. So it's sidewalkadvocates.org/sidewalk statement. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us at info@sidewalkadvocates.org. All right. Well, with that, I hope you'll join me next Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central for the Lauren Muzyka Show. You'll find it on the Sidewalk Advocates for Life Facebook page or YouTube channel or wherever you get podcasts. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks so much.